Hi there, it's the Hal Feldman and Javier Gonzalez show.
Hey.
It is the Miami Hal Real Estate
It
Show,
is,
but
it
I like
is.
to say the Hal and Hav Show because you know what? You've taken over. The personality is there, the drive is there. I walk in and your smiling face
It
is
is,
here,
and we
just
have the
get
new
going.
and we have the new bar back here. Our little partition.
Yeah,
It's back.
listen, let's be safe, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So, every other week
Mhm.
we sit down and we talk about what our perspective is on real estate.
Yes, we do.
And this is a special time. It's 10 a.m., not 2 p.m.
10 a.m. I want to give a traffic report. That's what I feel like.
I was
doing.
leading into the traffic report.
That's
because
what
we
I feel
don't-
like doing. Yeah.
Listen, as a real estate agent, we try. We
Yeah.
don't always. We can kind of dictate
Yeah.
when we're going to be traveling, right?
Yeah, we
So
can.
today, not so much. How is the 10 a.m. traffic report?
The 10 a.m. traffic report. It's the traffic sucks in Doral. It sucks on US 1. It just sucks overall.
I think you missed the exit.
Yeah, it just
to get here.
basically, yeah. There was an overturned truck and everything. So yeah, at 10 o'clock, we're doing a traffic report. We're not really going to talk real estate. Now, I'd like to welcome you back because I heard that you were on the French Riviera or somewhere out there
I
looking for a
was.
big listings or just
in my
kind of cruising.
dreams, I was in the French Riviera,
And
and,
how
I
was it?
appreciate you bringing that out into the public when I was away.
There you go. I just want to make sure that you welcomed you back.
Once in a while, real estate agents do get to take a little bit of a vacation,
every
as I'm
once in a
sure
while.
you do as well.
Yes.
And what's really interesting is when you go away, you really aren't always on vacation
No,
because you
never.
always have clients that need something, and the good ones know how to get it done, either by bringing in a colleague that can assist or by making sure you're available by phone, text, or email to get the job done.
Yeah, we talked about that last week though. When you were away, you can still do things because it's one of the nice things about our job, our business, that we can really just work it off the phone. And as long as we have some boots on the ground, we can usually get a lot of things done.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. So,
Absolutely.
welcome back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we always start the show this way. Hav, what did you learn in real estate this week?
That a real estate agent is very important for you to work with. One of the things that we found out, and this just reaffirms a lot
This
of the
just
things.
sounds like a sales pitch to me.
I know it's going to sound like a sales pitch, but it isn't. So, okay, so it's a sales pitch. So we had a client about 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Just a little rental,
Yeah.
and they weren't ready to rent. And you know the rental market, so they weren't ready to rent, and they were out of town. And they stayed in contact with Ashley from my office, and she developed a relationship. And they worked, and a property came up that wasn't on the market. It was going to be redone. We got them pictures, and they actually followed through. So by staying in contact with an agent, and by working with someone, or at least just being in contact with them, you get heads up to things that aren't readily available. So that's, I think, one of the strengths of doing it. So from a sales pitch standpoint, we always hear we're the greatest things in sliced bread, but I think a lot of times if you stay in touch with an agent, somebody that you trust, somebody you feel comfortable with, there are a lot of benefits to doing that. So that's one of the things that was reaffirmed.
So kind of part of what you learned is, even though there are great tools online for people to find things,
Sure.
It is that personal connection with an
Absolutely.
agent and staying in tune with that agent on a regular basis that can sometimes yield those golden nuggets that nobody else sees.
Right. If that person would have waited for that property to hit to the MLS, it would have been super competitive.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the property's gone. So they saw the property from the inception because it was a property that was traded and it had to be remodeled. So it took about a month and a half. So through that whole process, they were on and they were committed.
Wow,
But the
that's
key,
great.
But I think the key element is that if the client stays in touch with an agent, their agent of choice, whatever it is, I think what they do is we can develop relationships that are long-term, that are beneficial for both individuals, for both sides. And I think that's something that obviously online presence, can't do. Always start your searches online. That's fine. But I think that personal touch and that relationship, I think is critical to what we do.
We're going to continue on that vein of what you learned. I know several people that have approached me, and I'm sure it's happened to you and every agent out there. And they go, oh, I need you to help me with this. Yet they have also engaged with several other real estate agents at the same time.
Right.
Tell everybody what that yields typically.
Chaos is one of my favorite words. And it's funny in the industry, especially in smaller communities, like if you're doing stuff in Coconut Grove, you're doing stuff in Palmetto Bay or wherever, you start to know who those clients are.
Right.
And we've always pegged clients like, from wherever you're coming from. If you're coming from Zillow, we know you're this type of buyer. if you're coming from, realtor or whatever. Oh, don't get me started with realtor. We got to talk about
We're going to
realtor.
finish with that.
Realtor.com?
Those are the fireworks you told me you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, they
Okay.
really just set me off. But I think, that when you're working with too many people, or you're trying to get everybody going on the wrong side. Actually, I can tell you a story. A friend of mine is selling a property up in Cape Cod, and he's actually going through that right now with a person who made an offer, who went over the agent's head and went straight to the broker because the guy doesn't have a realtor.
Wow.
So imagine, it was like that kind of move, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, man, we don't even see that down here, and we're pretty bad.
Yeah.
But the guy just went over his head trying to get the deal done, and my guy doesn't. The seller isn't really too excited about that whole thing.
I bet he is.
Yeah, so that's it. What'd you learn? You learn anything?
I did learn something.
What'd you learn out in the Riviera?
Actually, I learned it right here at home.
Did you? All right.
In the USA, made in the USA.
Really,
Yeah.
Good job.
So what I learned is I have a couple of phrases that I talk to my clients about all the time. And the one I want to focus on today is my scenario about the relationship between me as a real estate agent and my clients. And I tell them that in this relationship, I'm your star quarterback.
Right.
I'm the guy that's in the game, and I've seen it all. And I am there to either score a touchdown, and once in a while I'm going to get tackled and for a 15-yard loss. But I'm the one in the game. Yet the person that I'm working with, the client, they've hired me. So I tell them, you're the coach. Now, in critical parts of our game, playing real estate, I'm going to come to the sideline because you're going to call me over and say, hey, what's going on? And I'm going to give you not only what I'm seeing on the field, but my recommendation. And I would hope that most of the time the client, the coach in this scenario, would listen to that and say, okay, I'm comfortable with that. Let's move forward. But I also tell them, hey, you're the coach. In the end, whatever you want to do, we're going to do. And so that usually puts my clients at ease because, hey, I'm hired. You can hire me, you can fire me, and you can listen to my advice or not. But I'm here to create success for us. Okay, that's the quick speech I give somebody. What do you think about that?
That's a super cool analogy, and it would have been great when we talked about the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago. That would have been a great lead in. But that's actually a really, really good point. I mean, we are in essence driving an offense that somebody is guiding us to offense. So that's really good. Very good.
So that's the background. Now here's what did I learn? Well, I learned about 3 months ago. I was working with a client who had already, for approximately 6 months, leased a property with me. So we put the property on the market. It got leased for a year term, and the renter ended up buying something, and so they exited their lease early, which was fine. Everything was the way it was supposed to be there. And at that point, the owner of the property said to me, I want to lease again. And I said, you really ought to be looking at selling right now. They did not need to move back into the property. They had, comfortable living somewhere else. So I said, why don't you sell? And after a couple of conversations and me convincing them that this was probably one of the best times they're going to have in the rest of their lifetime to sell, they said, okay, we're going to move forward with selling. I gave them the analysis, and I'm going to give numbers, but not addresses or names. And what I said was, this property, which is located somewhere in Palmetto Bay, is going to be worth about $700,000, between $680,000 and $700,000 on appraisal. And therefore, I suggest, because the market's hot, and between now and the time that we actually get under contract and an appraisal is done, maybe it moves up a little bit more. Let's list at $715,000 and get going. And conversation back and forth. This is over several weeks of consternation by the seller. And the answer was from the coach, I want to list at $799,000.
There you go.
And I went, okay, I'll do that. Now, why did I go breathe in like that? I breathed in like that because, as you know, and most of the audience that's watching knows, people search in brackets. And Palmetto Bay in certain areas are worth certain amounts of money. Right. And this house was not worth $799,000. And in fact, I truly believe that nobody would be searching from $700,000 to $800,000 in this area. Right. They might be searching up to $700,000, if we're lucky, $725,000. So off we went at 799. And as I expected, we had crickets chirp.
Right.
We literally had nobody that wanted to come see the property. And after a couple of weeks of that, we then dropped the price to 750. God, we're getting there, right? We're getting closer.
We're getting closer to the right number to get some looks.
Yeah, warmer,
Right.
but not at the
Yeah.
hot moment yet. And we actually did get a bunch of people to come out. And a couple of very astute agents showed the property to their clients. They liked the property. The home is very nice. And ultimately, I had somebody that I worked with. And of course, there's conversation behind the scenes that typically a buyer and seller don't know, but the agents know how to get the two sides together. And we went under contract at a price that I believed, again, knowing that the appraisal was going to be lower, was not going to ultimately work out. And the price that we came up with was $754, which I was shocked at.
Yep, very good.
And of course, in today's market, a lot of people should know this. If you're about to put a property on the market and you're going to expect offers, what you also want to do is see your agent work toward a clause in the final contract that says, listen, if this doesn't appraise, the buyer is going to pay a certain amount of money above appraised value to get us to the ultimate contract price. There's competition. It's a seller's market.
That's pretty common right now.
So here we had the number $25,000, and I was in shock. That was a great number, right? So we could go to 729 of an appraisal, and everything would still be good. And in the back of my mind, I'm the quarterback. I'm thinking, coach isn't going to get it right here, but we move on, and I'll fight for everything that I can.
Sure.
Guess where the appraisal came in?
715.
No, 680, right where I told them.
Oh, even lower. Wow.
So think about this. Coach and quarterback relationship. I tell him it's possible that the property is going to appraise at 680. He lists at 799. It's $120,000 difference. Okay. We work through it. Market's good. We're going to get something done, right? Then we go through all the consternations. I won't go to the details, but ultimately we now have an issue. 680 appraisal, 754 purchase price. I won't go through all this, but I fought tooth and nail for my client, and we are still moving this thing forward. I can't tell you because it hasn't closed, but we're very close. And I was in shock with what the buyer was willing to do, because they are not coughing up $25,000 more. They're coughing up significantly more than that to make up the difference.
This market.
What did I learn? That coach and quarterback relationships sometimes can be very far apart from each other, but still work out. And B, we are still in a crazed marketplace where when a buyer, and by the way, a little bit of quick background from the other agent, they told me that they had been looking for 7 months and had lost several contracts. So my seller was incredibly lucky in this scenario because they put this contract together. They got through the inspections. They got the appraisal as an issue, and obviously the buyer said, "I don't care what it takes. We're getting this house." Very, very lucky for my seller. That's what I learned.
Yeah, I think a lot of the sellers out there, while they reach and while they're reaching for some numbers, they don't realize that we're still up against appraisals, and we're still and there's so much we can give as a spread. And usually we can give that, $25,000, $30,000, and that can be kind of a difference of a budget. But when you're going into that 100 and change, it just becomes very, very, very difficult. One of the follow-ups too that about working with agents and stuff like that, and you just brought up the point, is agents have relationships with each other, and good ones have a very, very nice wide spread of other agents that they can talk to and they can work with. And I think that's missed by a lot of buyers and also by a lot of sellers, that they don't realize that we can reach out to folks. Like right now, I have something quiet on the market in the Grove at 2.5.
You'll have to tell me more about
Exactly. I'll tell you more about it later. But it's beautiful property,
Yeah.
great views. I mean, the views are just spectacular. I mean, just fabulous. And but again, you're starting to reach out, and you can reach out to some, hey, do you have this individual? And that relationship also builds when you're trying to put a contract together. And I think that's something that is overlooked all the time. Like you called me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, listen, I'm looking for this, or I've got this. And those are things that happen. Or if I put an offer on one of your properties, you know that I'm going to get the job done. I know that you're going to get the job done.
That's absolutely true.
And that's something that is priceless for sellers and buyers.
So when you've done this for a number of years, you're absolutely right. You create relationships with agents. Now they're not going to disadvantage any of our clients.
No.
We're careful about that,
Right.
but often is the case, it does give us an advantage to get the job done. And I'm going to give a secret, which I'm sure you know. I'm going to teach the audience about this. So you and I both have license numbers, correct?
Yes, we do.
And they are sequential.
Yes, they are.
And so when I get into a potential deal that's being put together, I make sure that I look at the other agents, if I don't know them already,
Right.
the other agent's license number, because it's really easy to see how long they've been in the business.
Yeah.
And you can often change the tonality and the directness or indirectness of how you communicate with them, whether you need to stroke their ego or whether or not you can expect things to be greener than more seasoned agents. And that alone, you never really talk about that with your clients, but can really make the difference, right? It's your observation of what the deal and the structure is going to look like.
Yeah, and that's another key point is how we put deals together and how they're structured and because I always tell people, it doesn't matter about the price. We've got to look at terms. We've got to look at, everything that comes down the pike.
No, but the clients know it's only about the price.
Oh, yeah. So it's always about the price.
Again, why you need to work with an agent, because the other terms can be critically important.
And when they go south, we just closed on a deal last week where we were working with agents that we knew, but unfortunately, one of the agents didn't know that there was a tax lien on the property for a huge chunk.
Yeah.
So we're going through all the motions. We've done all the inspections. We're ready to go. All of a sudden, when they were on title and everything's like, this is a major, major issue that we have to deal with, and how it's going to be escrowed. And it was at a state, and the other side's attorney was just milking this thing to the end. And, you don't realize all the little details that go in the back. And fortunately, my buyer had a really super great attorney working on his side and working on his behalf. And, again, we got the deal done, but it was, a very difficult step-by-step.
So we have two other main topics we want to get to today.
We do.
First one is what's going on with the market. And the second one is your
fight with
peeve of the week.
My Realtor.com fight.
God.
Yeah.
Which one you want to do?
Let's do the market. That's a more important one. And we can just go off with Realtor.com. You're going to learn something,
or I know you'll go off.
You're going to learn something very interesting about Realtor.com.
I bet I will.
And how they
maybe I'll hate them on the way.
And how they bill you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the market.
Yes.
Right now, in particular, I am getting so many people calling, texting, whatever. What's going on with the market? What can I expect? And I will often give very solid advice, but through COVID times and what's been going on as we kind of exit the original COVID crisis and maybe enter the next phase of Delta and Gamma and whatever else we want to talk about, I'm not as confident in what I can give as market advice.
Right.
But over the course of July, I believe it really started at the beginning of July and obviously continuing now into August, I have seen a very specific turn in this market.
Right.
And I'd love to get your observations on that. And then hopefully together we can tell our audience what we believe the next 6 months looks like.
What I've seen is a lot. Now, it could be also attributed just to our summer months that people are just kind of slowing off. But I think what I've seen is not as many listings coming up as hitting the market. I still think there is a demand out there, a pent-up demand. But I think the pent-up demand is actually starting to push later back, not so much now, but starting to move into next year. Like they've already given up on this year as one of the plays. And we talked about it in another show. I do think that we're going to get some listings coming up towards the end of the year. That's something that's natural. I
feel that because I have a pipeline with that.
Right.
People that have been waiting and now I've gone back to them and contacted them. I said, listen, don't wait anymore.
Right.
The bubbling hot market is not bubbling so much.
No.
So get it done now.
No, get it done. And you've got a second surge in COVID. So that's going to affect a little bit. But I think I just see that a slowdown, or people just saying, the buyers, they can wait. Sellers, they have to kind of get to it, because if not, they're going to miss it. And that's where I see, some sellers coming in onto market late, and then buyers, but I still see the buyers maybe coming in after the new year.
Okay.
And it could be that way. And then, we've got our first little tropical depression coming through. So we'll see how that plays out for the rest
See,
of the
see how
rest
the
of the
New
season.
Yorkers like that?
Yeah,
ones
to
that
see
have
how
moved
the
down
New
here?
Yorkers like that. It ruined my golf game though this Saturday and Sunday.
Oh,
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
gonna get
I
the
know.
little fiddle out
Yeah,
for
I
you.
know, but I'm make some side money on that. It's a little side gig.
Oh wow, you're that
Absolutely.
good. Okay,
Absolutely.
I'll make sure as a hacker I'll be sure not to come out onto the course with you.
Yeah, smart move.
What do you feel about pricing with the activity that you just described? What happens with pricing?
We've seen prices adjust. I mean, I've seen now you get that new pricing or price adjustment or all the new words that we use as agents to say that we're reducing a number. And also, you mentioned something earlier about your deal. I have a listing that is on the market at a certain price. It is not. It's just not that kind of listing. It's something that should be less, and it is just very difficult to get the sellers to move down on it, even though we're not showing the property. And that's really the key. When you price something, you're not getting any showings. Forget it. You're so over. It's ridiculous.
As we're talking about this, a memory comes up from May.
Mhm.
I had clients that were looking to buy, and in May we were looking at things around $400,000. So the hottest part of the market.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're out on weekends trying to find places, and at that point, we pulled into an open house. And 2 blocks away, there were cars parked all over the sidewalk and on the grass and all this stuff. I'm like, what is this about? Is there a block party? And no, it was 2 blocks away. The cars were parked to get in line to see this open house. That is not happening today.
No.
So whereas literally dozens of people would stand in a line in the heat waiting to get into a house, now if I did an open house, it would be wonderful if I got 10 people through in maybe 3 hours.
I think also we can talk about a strategy that a lot of sellers don't like to hear. But if you price the property, if you would have priced the property that you talked about, Palmetto Bay, at $680, $699, you would have had that long line.
Yes.
But since you were over 100, the buyers and the agents are, we're all doing the same thing. We know when something is over.
Yeah.
And we know when something is right on and spot on. So then you maximize your offers and you maximize your contracts and you maximize your terms. But a lot of sellers just don't see that. They just want to see pricing. That's just the nature of this gig.
And I told you I have several phrases and things that I work with clients as I need to impress upon them certain aspects of how I do things in the market. And you just brought up another one. You know what I call that? What you just described? The more than one rule. Yeah. And they go, what do you mean the more than one rule? If I can get more than one person interested in your property at the same time, you will have no negotiation to do. They will beat each other up and take it to the very highest point of what the market will bear for that property. And you do almost nothing. And so the way you can do that, and this is what always scares people when I talk about this, and it just is there to prove a point. It's not necessarily that I want to do this. If you underprice a listing, let's say the place is going to appraise at 500 and you list it for 455, okay, you are still going to sell for what it's worth. And what you will absolutely create is a pandemonium. People will be pounding on the door. And I have an actual example of this. It's now 8 or 9 years old, but a property in Westchester where a lot of the houses are very cookie cutter. And, I priced it right at where I thought it should sell. And there were tons of things on the market at that point that had been there for, on average, it was over 200 days on market. And, I said to my client, you want to do it right? Let's not price where everybody else is, because that's wrong. Obviously, we're not getting any sales done there. Let's price it at what it's worth. And we sold above where I listed, which is exactly what I was trying to do. Now, it wasn't a ton higher, but it's where the market was going to bear it. And I literally had, before I could put the sign in front of the house the first day, there was a line of people. And this was at a time when there shouldn't be lines of people. So coming back to today, we don't have the lines anymore. We still have good interest rates.
You can create the lines, though.
We can create the lines
by doing the right thing.
By putting your list prices close to what truly is going to be the appraised value, and then letting a ton of people see it because they know there's value and they know that, if they get in there and the golden ticket is theirs, they're going to win that house. And you create the competition that way.
That's the only way right now I think that you can do it. And again, you brought up a point, and I have another way of doing it. I tell all these my clients, listen, if I price so poorly, we're going to have 1,000 offers. So we'll be able to move the number up anyway to the right number if I'm that bad at what I do. And so we're going to get there anyway. And if you don't like
that's what I tell my people. Jav is so bad.
Exactly.
Price it wrong.
Everybody else does too, by the way. You're not the only one. I'm sure I hear a lot about that. But I think that's one of the elements. The market is what the market is. And we can try to predict it. We can try to make it, we can try to get to it. But at the end of the day, the market will do what it does, and it will bear what it will bear.
Good real estate agents make the best of the market.
Exactly.
They do not make the market.
Correct.
So if somebody walks into a house as an agent and says, I can get you X, stop.
Mm-hmm.
I can get you? What? No, the market is going to yield this.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the range, because it's never an exact dollar figure. I will work to get you the highest part of that range that I can.
And the best terms for you, because terms are worth money.
Yes, they are.
And people just don't look at that. Closing dates, you have everything, and you have to really
risk during an inspection
absolutely.
period. There's so many places that regular folk don't pay attention to that. Again, working with an agent, we point out those things, and hopefully at the end of the deal and the day, I can't even say that, they are appreciated by our clients, and most of the time for me they are.
Yeah. And I think another thing that has to take into account is for sellers is that when you do have a buyer on the other side with an agent, that agent is also doing their job, and they're also doing their work. So
I'm looking at the time.
Are we almost up?
2 sentences on what the next 6 months are like from your perspective.
More inventory, less buyers.
Okay. Pricing? That's your second sentence.
Staying more or less the same, because I think people are going to be realized that what they're reaching for isn't going to be there.
Okay. I agree with your first sentence. My second sentence is, I believe prices are going to trend down from here. And that's what I believe the next 6 months are. So now we've got 3 minutes for you to go to town on realtor.com and to teach me what I'm paying for that I don't know.
No, well, I had a program and it comes up in April, and I used to pay $450 for the program a month, which is fine. And whatever enhancement, whatever leads we're supposed to get, which I never get a lead, and that's whatever. So it went from April to May, went up to $910.
Wow.
And I said, wow, that's 52% increase for the same product. Now, if I tried to do that on the market, I would be laughed out of the market and just completely, crazy.
Yeah,
so
what are you getting for?
Well, basically, I just bought this property at $400,000. I'm gonna, mark it up and sell it, and I'm market at $900,000. No, $900,000.
Oh,
so, yeah, right, because that's what happened. So we went into battle. I didn't pay the bill. They charged me bits back. You get the threatening phone calls. You get no phone calls, and I finally got somebody on the phone after about 3 months. Okay, somebody that could actually handle the problem, because you get the people that are just working in their house and stuff. So I finally get to somebody. And I said, how do you justify this? And this is how they justify it. It says, it's in the area that you work in. So what is the hottest area in Miami? The 33133, Coconut Grove?
Yeah.
So that's the area that I work in. So that's the area that has my number, my address.
Right.
And so because of the market and the increase in value of the properties, they're felt that I should be
dollars.
And that's how they came up with it. And I said, well, what happens if I sell like in other parts of Miami? So they just doubled it up because of that. It used to be that if you had a lot of listings.
You're on a list, buddy.
Yeah. For sure. For absolutely sure.
But so
I got rid of it, and the program's still the same. I still don't get any leads. It really doesn't matter. And it's all crap. But that's fine.
So let's end on this, because I think this is important. Agents are not agents. Mm-hmm. There are agents that literally get their license. I'm not quite sure how, because they may not be educated enough, but they pass the test somehow.
They're not teaching anything anymore.
Okay. They place their license with a broker and they start doing business. Mm-hmm. And then there are agents like you and me, and I'm not saying we're the only ones, that do things like you just mentioned. They pay money to a lot of these services that are online that end users, consumers go to use. Realtor.com, the Z Word, and a few others, homes.com, and we pay for our listings,
usually to protect our
boosted,
listings, or protect our listings,
to be boosted and be higher up on the list. Right. And so when you're hiring an agent like you or me, you're not only getting the MLS service and our personalized service, but you're also getting an automatic boost to what is seen online globally.
Right.
It's important.
True. And also our brand Remax actually is one of the strongest brands.
Agreed.
You know, people locally may say that it's not, you know, on the local platform, but from a national and from an international platform, we are the largest.
Well, that's about it.
That's
this
about
week. I provide real estate dreams. What do you provide?
I provide, I don't know what I provide. I provide a service.
A service.
A service.
And we leave it at that.
And we'll leave it at that.
Have a great week. You're going to see this guy in 2 weeks. You'll see me next week.
All right. Have a good one, guys.